Hello and welcome to Bonkers Economics. Am I bonkers or is it the system we live in? You decide. Today we're talking about the energy market, which, as we can all see, is pretty broken. It's never really worked and it's ripping us all off at the same time. So what's that all about? Okay, let's start with the word market because that's pretty central to this. A market, let's all agree, is somewhere where people bring things to buy and sell. You bring your things to market, people choose what they want. They might want, I don't know, apples rather than pears, or oranges or lemons. Or you go to a supermarket, huge range of things on offer. You make a choice. You choose, and crucially, if you don't want any of it, you walk away. That's the essence of a market. In addition to which, perhaps there's a question of innovation. People bring new things to market, things you've not seen before. And you think, oh, that'd be interesting, I'll try that. And you try it and you like it or you don't like it, and you buy it again or you don't. And the final thing, I suppose, about a market is price difference, because you might want cheap and cheerful or expensive and better quality, potentially, something like that. So you've got those components of a market: differentiation, innovation, choice. Those are the things which make a market, and those are the things which are all completely absent from what we call the energy market. And that's why it's bust, and that's why we have all these problems. The thing about energy is that it's all the same. There is no differentiation. The electrons flowing into your house are the same as those going into your neighbour's house, and the gas is the same, and they're coming through the same pipes and wires. There's no difference and there's no innovation. There's no better gas or worse gas. And actually, I don't think there's any price differentiation either. We have the impression of price differentiation because one company says, I'll sell it to you cheaper than another. But at the end of the day, they're all paying for it in the same way from the same people. It's coming through the same pipes and the same wires. The whole amount of work involved in getting it to you is the same. So long term, there will be no fundamental price difference. You might think you're getting a good deal for a while, but the chances are that good deal will evaporate in 6 months' time. Unless you're constantly changing supplier, you won't get consistently a better deal than someone else. And if you are constantly getting a better deal than someone else, then that's because somebody else is being more ripped off than you are. So there's no winning fundamentally. There's no real price differentiation in the energy market. So not a market. Why do we have it in the first place? Why do we call it the energy market? Why was it created? Well, because the government in the 1980s wanted to bring private money into the energy business. It considered that the only way a thing could be run efficiently and effectively and well was if people had invested their own money in it, their private money, and they could make a profit out of it. And if they did that, they would do the job as well as possible, and we'd all be better off as a consequence. So the government sold off all these public utilities, and to make them work, it divided them up into bits. So you've got the primary producer, and then you've got the wholesale market and the trading markets, and then you've got the distribution people, and then you've got the people who send you your bill. And you've got 4 or 5 different parts of the supply chain. And at each point, at each interface between 2 of those parts, there's a profit-making opportunity. Someone's buying and someone's selling, and so there's a profit to be made by somebody at that point. And of course, we're paying for all those profits that are made down the line as the ultimate consumer. And then on top of that, we've got a whole load of additional costs like advertising and those price comparison websites, for example. They advertise widely on television, so you can be pretty sure they're making plenty of money. And we're, of course, paying for them because they charge the utility companies, and those companies charge us in our bills. So we're paying for all that, and we're also paying for a regulator. Now, what's that about? That's because when the government created these private utility companies, they realized that they couldn't possibly work as competitive businesses because there was no competition. There was only one product. There was only one sort of gas, one sort of electricity, one sort of water, come to that. So they created a sort of fake form of competition to try and encourage people to pile into the market and compete with each other, even though fundamentally they couldn't. And also to prevent people charging too much, because obviously if you give away the right to supply electricity to a bunch of companies, unless you stop them, they're going to charge you as much as they possibly can. So the regulator is another big cost. We have to pay for all those people who are employed. We pay for all that infrastructure. We pay for all this thing down the line. So huge costs have been heaped onto the energy market as a consequence of it becoming a private profit-making business rather than simply a service that supplies energy out of a power station or a hole in the ground or whatever to your kitchen or boiler or whatever it might be. And that's all because the government has got a particular view of how money operates in the economy. It's got this idea that money is generated by profit-making businesses. And those profit-making businesses give that money to the state in the form of taxation. And the state then pays that money out for services like the National Health Service or whatever it might be. It's a great picture, and it's also complete and utter nonsense. It's complete nonsense, and yet we've lived with it for 40 years. We believe it in our souls now. We believe that the government is like a household economy, that it can't spend what it hasn't got coming in. Utter nonsense. And it's nonsense for this reason. The government creates money. The government is the only part of the economy that can create, that can make money. And it puts that money into the economy through the banking system. And that money then circulates in the economy, and businesses manage to accumulate it by making profits. And that's how they accumulate money. And then they have to give some of that money back to the government, not because the government needs it, but because other people in the economy need it. And if you left to themselves, the money would all accumulate in a small number of places in the economy. But the money originates with the government, so the government can put it where it wants. And it could put it into a simple system in the energy market, which ensured that energy comes out of the ground or out of the power station through a pipe or a wire into your house in the simplest possible way with the lowest possible overheads, and you pay a pretty much standard price, predictable price, and any fluctuations that there might be can be ironed out by government putting in a bit more money or taking a bit more money out or something of that sort. All these things are entirely possible. The only thing that stops them from happening is the government's got a particular view of how the economy is supposed to work. And we all pay for that. We all pay for that, and we buy into it in rather worrying ways. So let's talk more in another video about how the economy makes money and how that works, because it's probably too much to go into it all now. For the moment, let's just talk a little bit about the current situation, which is that there's a certain number of bottlenecks in the supply of energy at the moment because of the sort of post-COVID recovery. It's not that there isn't enough gas, it's not that there isn't enough energy being produced in the places that produce energy. The problem is that there's been a few bottlenecks in supply. So a ship full of liquefied natural gas coming out of the Middle East heading for, say, South America, and somebody in China says, well, I'll pay you more for that. And the ship turns around and goes to China. So the energy in China has got more expensive, and the people in South America have got less of it, so the price goes up there. That's not about supply, that's about distribution. That's about people in the middle able to make money by diverting energy away from one person to another and by controlling where it goes in order to profit from it. That's something we could get rid of if the market wasn't controlled by these large corporations, if it was controlled more in the manner of a public service, and it was understood to be something which people need pretty much as a right to live their lives, and should therefore be supplied in the most efficient economic fashion possible. So that's that. Do subscribe to the channel. There'll be plenty more on bonkers economics about these sorts of things in the coming weeks and months, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.